But for some of y'all who are new to the program, let me explain to y'all something. Somebody had this brilliant idea that if you take a ultra left leaning liberal Democrat in the form of myself, and that you place on the other side of the table a well intentioned and good meaning Republican, somehow we would end up in the middle. And unfortunately, the Republicans haven't held up well. They keep getting crushed, run out of the studio, and disappear on me. So guess what? Again today, I'm in studio by myself. My co-host, Sweet Pete Edwards, and Professor Seabrook are indisposed. And Professor Seabrook is indisposed because after being on the show with me for a while, he determined he needed some more education. So he's off educating himself, and we wish him well as he works on his doctorate, focused on some educational dynamics that have affected African American males. So one day we're going to have a great report from him on his continued studies that will make him worthy of sitting next to me. Likewise with Pete Edwards, who has spent a lifetime of battling in the streets and going from bus stop to bus stop, educating himself with the youths of Tampa. He is out today getting some more education. Pete is out of studio on a field assignment, working a back-to-school program that he's done for a number of years. And Pete, we're happy to see that you're out working in the community. So what that means is it's me in studio, but for whatever the boss can do to keep me under control, I get to wander around and do my thing. And we've said this in the past, y'all. This microphone is like, it's like my psychiatrist. It is my therapist. It is a moment where I get to let out all the things that are bottled up inside of me that have grown during the week as things have festered about what is happening. And I like saying that I am a very amateuristic pundit of all things political. So I love the political environment. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about some political stuff in two contexts. One related to elections, which are coming up. No matter where you are listening nationwide to In Touch News, we're moving into election season, and you need to be aware of the impact and dynamics there. We're also going to talk about back to school. We're getting into that back to school window where people's minds refocus on education, and education is, I think, a key undercurrent to elections. But I want to start off the day with that. I was telling DJ CEO, who's here in studio with me, and if I go too far one way or the other way, he's going to chime in, y'all, and get me back on track. But I was telling him about just a great story this week that brought me back to my bar experience, because when I was taking the bar exam, I became physically ill. I contracted a condition that was related to fatigue and stress that put my ability to continue with the bar exam process in jeopardy. And I was able to overcome that, pass the bar first time out, the usual thing that we do at the Paris household with obstacles. But I want to talk about a kid that my most recent mentee at law school. And I am very proud to say that we're well into our double digits of mentees that we've helped get into law school, help get through law school, and then help get into the practice of law, because I think it's a place in the American society that a lot of power and control rests that we don't really appreciate or strategically attack. It's kind of like your finances. If you're strategic, the numbers take care of themselves, meaning if you take some of your money and pay yourself every paycheck, if you live within your means, if you plan for expenditures for tomorrow, and be diligent, the money takes care of itself. Likewise with other things in America. And I think the legal community, we've been victimized by it at every stage of it, not from the laws that are enacted, like the situation with Roe versus Wade, but then the application of law like George Floyd and those in power, and then the judicial process of how it then manifests itself in our lives. So I'm very proud to say that one of my focuses as a person is on mentoring people through undergraduate, into law school, and into the practice of law in any way that I can. And my most recent graduate, I'm going to give him a shout out because this week he took the bar exam. I'm going to go ahead and claim it on faith that he passed the bar exam. But this week he took the bar exam. And so I'm cheerleading him along, getting there, do your thing. And I check in on him on Wednesday. Bar exams Tuesday and Wednesday. So DG, this is what happened. I call him on Tuesday after the first day. He's all excited, man. I knocked it out. I did all I could. I was ready. I grounded out. Oh, well, man, it's going to go good. So I figured I'd leave him alone and wait till he finished. So I called him on Wednesday afternoon, about 5. Hey, how did it go? He said, whoa, man, it's an adventure. Let me tell you what happened. He said, I woke up the middle of the night, Tuesday night, sick. I'm nauseous and I'm throwing up. He said, I woke up and I threw up 4 times. His mother's up trying to nurse him back to health. He's just like, I'm drained. I'm drinking Gatorade and it's coming right back out of me in both ends. I'm like, wow. So what'd you do? He said, I start trying to figure out, well, I need to call somebody and say, I can't take the second part of the bar exam. I'm just too sick. So his mom convinced him, no. You hang in there. We'll go down to the bar exam location and talk to somebody. So she gets him in the car, drives him down there, throws up again when he gets there, right? They're in the car. It's about 4 or 5 minutes before the start. And one of his professors happened to be in the parking lot and gave him a pep talk. Say, listen, man, this is stress. This is anxiety. Go in there and take that bar exam and do your best. Because if you sit out here, you definitely won't pass it. At least if you go in there and take the bar exam, you do it, you might pass, you might not. But go in there and tough it out. If you get sick in there, hey, you did all you could do. So he said him and his mom prayed. And then he went inside and took the exam. And he said every question was exactly what he had studied and prepared for. Every question was exactly. He said, once I got in there and got going, I felt fine. And he said, I hadn't been sick since then. So I thought it was just a great story of perseverance and accomplishment of the things that you don't prepare for. Because all the things he's like, listen, I've been taking exams my whole life. He's graduated cum laude at law school, top 5%. So he's battled tough exams. But he said it was something about seeing all these people taking this exam, knowing that these are the top academics in my profession that I'm going up against. And they've already told us, we are not letting all of you pass. There is a curve. Some of you, I don't care how well all of you do, some of y'all are not going to pass the bar exam. We're just not letting all y'all in. That's why it's called the bar exam. It bars you from coming into the profession. And I just thought it was just a great, great accomplishment for the young man that, first of all, he persevered. I love the role his mother played in it, and the spiritual strength to get him over his own physical shortcomings. So I'm very proud of Cameron Perkins, and he is off getting ready for a great law career down in South Florida. So I just wanted to share that with you, DJ CEO, man. Because it took me back, because I got sick when I had the bar exam too. And I didn't know what it was either, and doctor was able to get me through it. But this is normal in the American experience, and particularly for, I think, African Americans. We're constantly being challenged to overcome the things that stand in the way of us achieving the goals that we want and the things that we want to achieve. So I just want to share that, because too often people don't achieve what they want in life, and I usually attach it to a couple of things that hinder us. One is, most people are not blessed with a dream. They don't have a dream. They don't even have one. They just exist. The second group is the group that they have a dream, but they don't have the courage to pursue the dream. And the last group, I say, is the group that doesn't have the opportunity. They never get the opportunity to pursue their dreams. So be careful when you're talking to young people about fantastical ideas of what they might want to do and want to become, because you never know of how big of an impact and a negative it could have, or in the positive. And I would encourage everyone that we be positive with our young folks about what the future may hold for them. Even though it may not be the vision and reality that we see in the seat that we're in, I think it's important that we embody that with our young folks. All right. Now, today's topics. I mentioned earlier we were going to talk about some election related stuff. And here's why, everybody. You may have heard this or may have perceived it. Our democracy is in peril. Our democracy is in the greatest peril it has ever had before. Here's why. Here's why I say that. From the African American perspective, we've never had a lot of confidence in the democratic process. From early on, when we arrived in this country, we were excluded from it, and the things that came out of it did not benefit us. If you think about it, the greatest benefit to us caused and required a lot of people to die. The Civil War. It wasn't a bunch of people getting together deciding it is best we change the dynamics of American society and eliminate slavery and servitude, but it was the actual death of so many people in a war that remains to be one of the most horrific wars America's ever experienced. Subsequent to that, we were given the impression that we will use the democratic process through Reconstruction to uplift African Americans to equal, and I'll use this other word that I'm going to throw in, equitable status in American society. But the democratic process didn't do that. It failed. You know why? Because it allowed things like Jim Crow laws to be passed. It allowed blatant discrimination and segregation based off race to be imposed to create second-class citizenship. You know, it's one thing that you tell me I'm a slave and this person's my owner. I get that. It's something else you tell me, well, you're now both citizens, but you drink from that water fountain and you can't drink from that water fountain. Or you can't go to this school, or you can go to this school. Or you can create scientific things like blood transfusions, but you can't go to the hospital where they're administered and then you die from a car accident. Things of that nature in American society. That was the problematic period for me. I'm still pissed about that. I'm not so pissed about slavery. Because if I'm pissed about slavery, I got to go be pissed about the Bible and a lot of other ancient civilization issues. Because slavery has existed, you know, since man existed almost. It's the lie of equity America told us after the Civil War, that we were now equal. Now go back and pick that cotton and drink that water out of where we tell you to drink it from. That's what's got me still pissed and fighting about. So from the black perspective, DJC, the democratic process has never delivered on its promise. So we don't get shaken by watching it. But what's more concerning to me is the majority society and the white society, because they've always relied upon and trusted it in their process, because it has been the best vehicle for them to achieve what they wanted. Here's the problem. Barack Obama demonstrated that democracy can benefit other people too. It demonstrated that other people can also use democracy and the process that we utilize to elect the people that lead our country just the way white people can. And that shook people.
How did he demonstrate that?
By becoming president, by getting elected, by navigating the system. That's all he did. I once had, when I was at a law firm where I was the first black lawyer there, had an old guy come down to see me. He had graduated top of his class in physics and law at Harvard. Very sharp, considered one of the smartest guys ever to practice law in Hillsborough County. When I was at the firm one day, middle of the afternoon, he came down to my office shuffling. I never even talked to the man, ever met him, nothing. He walked in and said, I came down to meet you. And he sat for a talk for a little bit, and he said, well, it's clear you got us figured out. Now I guess I got to figure you out. I'll be back. And he got up and walked out. And what he's basically saying is, listen, black folks, y'all are learning how to deal with America. You're learning how to pull out of America what it has to offer. You're learning how to get the opportunities that America, because he wasn't even thinking, I need to be vigilant about keeping people out the door, because guess what? We've always kept you out. It's the absolute example of sometimes when you realize things, it's too late. And so our democratic process is in peril. And the way that we look at it is in peril. So when we come back, We're going to talk about the summer election season as we kick off going into the fall. We're going to go through some of these election issues that are on the table and see what you all have to think. If you want to call in, the call-in number, 813-444-9588. We'll be right back after this break.
By now, we're all aware of the dangers of COVID-19. Like others with existing health issues, cancer patients are at a high risk due to their compromised condition. If you are newly diagnosed with cancer, your care likely can't wait. Moffitt Cancer Center is the best place for your cancer concerns and to provide guidance to help you plan your next steps. We're here for you. Call 1-888-456-2839 or go to moffitt.org/here-for-you.
You've been injured. You deserve help from an attorney that knows how to handle your injury claim. This is Attorney Clinton Parrish from the Law Office of Clinton Parrish. For over a decade, I worked for insurance companies, and now I use that knowledge and experience to help people that have been injured. For a free consultation, call me, Attorney Clinton Parrish, at 813-413-7924. That's 813-413-7924, or at ParrishLawOffice.com. At the Law Office of Clinton Parrish, we take the pain out of being hurt. Offices, Riverview.
Get ready for over 5 decades of music. It's the last stop on the Love Train Tour, starring the OJs. It's your last chance to see your favorite group. The OJs live in concert. With Gerald Austin and the Manhattans. Friday, August 26th in the Straz Center. Also featuring Shirley Murdoch. The OJs with hit after hit. With Gerald Austin and the Manhattans and Shirley Murdoch.
Say goodbye.
Friday, August 26th in the Straz Center. It's the farewell tour for the OJs. For tickets, go online to StrazCenter.org. Put your hands together for the OJs, Gerald Austin, the Manhattans, and Shirley Murdoch.
Hello? Hold on. Sit tight. All right. Hey, we're back live on Intense News Radio, reality radio. Everybody could be a star. Again, this is Clint Parrish. And guess what, y'all? Hey, if you're watching us on Facebook, there is no Pete Edwards here. And so I could end up any place, anytime. But listen, I wanted to do you all a favor, and I want to talk about some election-related stuff in general. And so I've asked Ed Narain to give us a call. Brother Narain, are you there on the phone?
You know that I am here this morning. Good morning, Brother Parrish. How are you?
My man, hey, appreciate you coming in and joining in the conversation. And for those who don't know, Ed is a local community activist, former state representative, and just all things community related, exceptional family man, religious man. He's just, the epitome of what we call achievement in Kappa Alpha Psi. And as the poll mark for the Southern Province would say, achievement is what we do. So what's the surprise? So good morning, Ed. How you feeling, my brother?
I'm good, man. You keep talking about me a little bit. I'm cutting.
So check it out. Yeah. Right. So you did a
Paris. I'm also a Clint Parrish mentee, man.
I don't know about that.
That.
We're gonna change that word to something else.
No, I like your earlier, the gentleman you were talking about who was terrorized by the bar exam.
Yes.
I may have been terrorized once or twice by the Florida bar exam, but I only went through law school because of you, sir. I'm a Stetson alum because of you. So thank you very much for blazing that trail.
Thank you, Ed. I appreciate that, man. So you can relate to that story though that I was telling about
100%.
the young man. Just and when he said that, man, I was just sitting there almost in tears at his perseverance. And I told him, I said, whatever the outcome of that exam is, you have gained so much more in persevering through that moment. And that's just one to prepare you for what's coming next. So Ed, so you did a great program last week, I think it was, with the Tampa Alumni Chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi, the Now You Know series, where we take our very esteemed brothers and allow them to present information to the community. Where you talked about election related matters, and I thought it would be appropriate to get you on the show this morning, let you share some nuggets in general about election, and I know your program was more focused on Florida election, but I think the issues of elections are nationwide. And what are your thoughts as we move into this election season?
So, it's funny. Every year, every election cycle, somebody says, this is the most important election of our lifetime. But what's happening is, because of the attacks that and some of them are very brazen, right, on the Constitution, on the rights of Black people, it is the most important election of our lifetime, because a lot of times you can head off future problems.
Yes.
For example, those of you who may be concerned about Florida's current governor maybe running for president, if you want to stop that, beat him in the
right.
He doesn't have a platform to run for president from. But,
right.
We'll tell you that's near impossible. I believe anything is possible.
Oh, absolutely.
But as we've seen, there's been a lot of issues that have come to head. I was listening to you and DJ CEO a moment ago talk about President Obama. His election was both the best and worst thing that could happen to Black people.
Yeah.
And people hear me say that and they say, what are you talking about? Well, it was the best because it showed that if we could, focus our energies behind getting behind a candidate, we can elect anybody we want, especially at the federal level. But it was the worst because it unearthed all of those undercover racists that were asleep. Now they're like, oh man, we got to make sure that never happens again. And they went as far as blocking his last Supreme Court pick. If you remember,
yes,
Mitch McConnell refused to allow Merrick Garland to become a Supreme Court justice. Now, you talk about turn around being fair play. Now he's he's leading the Justice Department, and they end up prosecuting the very president who followed Barack Obama, and who knows where that trail is going to lead. So there's a lot of craziness in politics. I always tell people elections have consequences, and it's important that we vote in this upcoming election.
I think there's been a strategic effort, I think, in the last few years to undermine people's confidence in the democratic process. Is that your read also? And if so, how do you think that's going to affect this next election cycle?
I do believe that it's a concerted effort by one particular organization to stop people not just from voting, but to make them feel as if their vote doesn't count. That's been going on for years, but it's really becoming more magnified as we get closer to this election cycle. Midterms are typically when the party, the White House,
right,
Congress, the opposite get elected Congress, and that directing Americans to take the House. I doubt they're going to be able to win the Senate because, unfortunately for them, they put up a lot of bad candidates this cycle. I mean, look, if somebody wanted an individual to run 20 yards with a football in about 5 seconds that's about 50 years old, Herschel Walker's your guy. But if you want somebody that's going to elaborate on Roe v. Wade, he's probably not the best choice.
Right. And he's a reflection, I think, of the Trump effect within the Republican Party. Because the only reason he's on the ballot is he's the guy Trump wanted on the ballot.
Well, yeah. I mean, Donald Trump still has an outsized amount of influence on the Republican Party. It's why you see a guy who lives in New Jersey, but is famous for being on TV, Dr. Oz, run for the U.S. Senate in Pennsylvania against the former lieutenant governor, and it's not working. I think you'll see John Fetterman win that Pennsylvania election come November, all because Donald Trump is picking people that believe in him and believe in the big lie that the election was stolen. And that's going to hurt the GOP term unless they do two things. They need to get rid of the Trumpers, first of all.
But how do you get rid of Trumpers?
Get rid of the racist element.
But how do you do it? But I think that's a core, I think they exposed it. I don't think they created it. I think Donald Trump gave it oxygen so that it was now, on the surface. It was always bubbling underneath. So I think it's a core component of it, and for a long time, it just wasn't, acceptable in a civil society for people to behave like some of those people are behaving.
So I'll agree with you, and I'll throw this at you. And I need people to have an open mind sometimes when I talk, and I've only had one cup of coffee. But Donald Trump was the Republican equivalent of Barack Obama, in the sense that Barack Obama, when he ran for the presidency back in 2008, he got a lot of people who normally didn't pay attention to politics to vote.
Yes.
So if you think about some of our family members and cousins, they waited online for 4 hours to cast a vote to elect the first black president, right? And those people stayed engaged in 2012, and they may have fallen off a little bit in 2016, but they didn't care as much as they did in 2008 and 2012. Well, Donald Trump had the same effect. There were people, Republicans, people that didn't even really know they were Republicans, that were at home saying, yeah, I don't like the idea of a black man in office, if you want to go with the racial argument. But more or less, they found the first celebrity president. Donald Trump was the second. They saw Trump's name. They knew him from TV. They liked the crap he was saying about Mexicans and black people and women. And they came out because they finally had a voice. And by the way, they did it with a lot of small dollar donations. It wasn't like a ton of corporate money came in. President Obama showed people the path with small dollar donations. And then 8 years later, you had Republican candidates doing the same.
Right.
It's why Mitch McConnell and Ron DeSantis, they don't care about corporations. It's why they go after Disney, because their money is no longer coming from the corporate side of the house. It's coming from small dollar individuals who are fed up with government in general.
Wow. Now, listen.
Crazy, right?
You just dated yourself because you said Barack Obama was the first celebrity president. And that is because you're a young whippersnapper there, Brother Narain, because Ronald Reagan was the first celebrity president, and people were still shocked. Like, they were like, Ronald Reagan running for – I remember Ronald Reagan's running for president? You mean Ronald, shoot 'em up cowboy Ronald Reagan? But you're dead right about that, But that one of the things that we've always yelled and screamed in democracy is it works better when more people are involved. I'm going to say this sounds kind of crazy. Why would it not work better when these crazies showed up? When they got involved, and I'll answer my own question is I thought it was because too many of the good people, the reasonable people, in particular a lot of African Americans, became less involved. And that left the floor open for Donald Trump.
Well, you also can't have a bunch of single-issue candidates running for office and expect that government's going to function properly, right? If you recall, the big thing with Donald Trump in 2016 was the wall. I'm going to build this wall. And that was like the populist thing for him to say, because he was demonizing Mexican Americans that were here and saying they were coming in illegally and stealing jobs. And the minute you start saying that, of course, working class people are going to our ears are going to perk up and say, wait a minute, I want to have that job. Why are they stealing? And so he ran on one or two issues that resonated with, unfortunately, voters who aren't as sophisticated, meaning they only care about one or two things. And we have to be careful as black people. This is a black show, so I'm going to keep it real with us. When we look at the issues, when we look at a candidate, we need to look at them in totality. There were a number of black men that voted for Donald Trump in 2016 that put us in a bad place. And I think America rejected that in 2020. I was on this show when I told you I think it's going to take an old white man to beat an old white man, right?
Yes.
And that's what happened with Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And I'll come back and talk about Joe Biden's success as president, because he's been one of the best presidents we've had in just 2 years. I mean, his legislative agenda has been amazing for the country and for black folks. But you mentioned Roe v. Wade earlier, and I know a lot of the churches have their feelings about it. I don't care where you stand on this particular issue as it relates to a woman's right to choose, okay? I want to just tell you why Roe v. Wade is a problem for black people, okay?
Why don't we do this? Let me do this. Let me put a pin in that. Because I apologize. I'm going to need you to hang on the phone and do another segment if you can. Can you give me about another 10 minutes or so?
Hey, anything for you, bro.
Wow, how about that? Okay, everybody, listen, hang in there. Hold your thoughts, everybody. I've got the Honorable Edwin Lorraine on the phone with us. He's sharing some great knowledge about the election as we move into election season. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to pick up where we left off, talking about the impact of Roe v. Wade and how African Americans are affected by it. This is In Touch News Radio, reality radio, where everybody can be a star. We'll be right back. I thought that was Tammy walking in for a minute. Who's that?
You're listening to Tampa Bay Tammy
Your girlfriend.
on In Touch Radio.
In Touch Radio.
Who doesn't love being number one? When your team's dominating the standings, or your favorite band rocks the charts at number one, it feels good, right? Kind of like how it feels when you have auto insurance with State Farm. Because making you feel like number one is an honor your local State Farm agent takes seriously. Through the good times and not so good, your State Farm agent's proud to be here to help life go right.
Call Herman White at 961-6661. That's 961-6661.
Hey, this is Agent Wright, better known as Mr. Clean. You looking for some great barbecue? Come see them two brothers on the grill, located at 423 Virginia Street, Charleston, West Virginia. We got ribs, chicken, pulled pork, brisket, collard greens, mac and cheese, baby. Come get some and get you a nice, smooth cigar. 304-550-4431. That is 304-550-4431. Come get some, baby. The Rib Man, mama, the Rib Man.
You've been injured, you deserve help from an attorney that knows how to handle your injury claim. This is Attorney Clinton Paris from the Law Office of Clinton Paris. For over a decade, I worked for insurance companies, and now I use that knowledge and experience to help people that have been injured. For a free consultation, call me, Attorney Clinton Paris, at 813-413-7924. That's 813-413-7924, or at parislawoffice.com. At the Law Office of Clinton Paris, we take the pain out of being hurt. Offices, Riverview.
All right, we're back live on In Touch News Radio, reality radio. Everybody can be a star. I'm Clinton Parrish, one of the co-hosts here on the show, and we have on the phone with us the Honorable Edwin Lorraine. Good morning again, Edwin. Now, you were, before we took the break, you're sliding into this explanation of the impact of Roe v. Wade in the African American community. Go ahead, pick up where you were.
Yeah, no problem. Can you still hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay. So the reason why I say Roe v. Wade is a problem for black people, or at least the overturning of it, is because you have to look at this simply from a legal precedent perspective, okay? All of us are familiar with Brown v. Board of Education. A lot of people are not familiar with Brown v. Board of Education, too, that had to follow 2 years later in the Supreme Court.
Right.
What Brown v. Board of Education did was it unturned Plessy versus Ferguson. If you remember Plessy versus Ferguson, it was about a black man who looked very white, okay? The NAACP and other organizations were very particular about picking him. When they put him on that train car, it was designed to challenge existing law that said black people couldn't share these train cars with other white folks. And the Supreme Court, in probably its most egregious and wrong ruling, said, hey, you are allowed to have equal but separate conditions for black Americans, basically putting in shit.
Right.
That lasted until Brown v. Board of Education, which overturned Plessy versus Ferguson. Okay?
Correct.
So you had a precedent that was undone. What we saw with Roe v. Wade was also a precedent that was undone. So the slippery slope is, as more of the ultra-conservatives and radicalists get elected and then they appoint more judges that share their worldview, you can see existing precedents that have protected black people overturned. What am I talking about? Well, let me tell you from this perspective. One of the things that Roe v. Wade, it impacts everybody, right, is this concept of the right to privacy. I don't think people realize that the Constitution itself, the United States Constitution, does not guarantee its citizens a right to privacy. Now, that's in contrast to the Florida Constitution, which explicitly states you have a right to privacy. You actually have, believe it or not, more protection from the state government when it comes to that issue than you do the federal government. So what Roe v. Wade did was establish and actually reinforce that right to privacy. So if you listened or if you read some of the opinions, the opinions that agreed with the ruling on overturning Roe v. Wade, there was one particular line where Justice Thomas said, and yes, we need to take a look at Obergefell and
Right.
some of the other cases that were based on this right to privacy. So again, there's no federal guarantee that you have this. So if you overturn Roe v. Wade, you overturn Obergefell, you start going after things like Loving, which puts into place interracial marriage,
Correct.
or the ability to use contraceptives.
I think he excluded Loving, though. I think Clarence Thomas.
He didn't mention Loving. He was smart about that, right?
Yeah, right, exactly, because that meant that his
wife.
interracial marriage might be at issue.
For people that say, oh, as Christians, you have the right to privacy stripped out at the federal level, and you're now depending on the states to protect you from that. And as black people, we know that it's been the states' rights movement over the years that has harmed the most. Thank God for the federal government and the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments.
Yeah, you bring up a key point of I think that was completely lost in that whole discussion, because most people thought Roe versus Wade was about abortion, and it's not about abortion. It is about a right to privacy, and I'll use this word I call it all the time. I throw it out, it's self-dominion, my right to decide for me. You know, that is embodied in the whole idea. See, people don't realize that the old monarchical system was where the monarch had dominion over the individual, and then there was a perception of a manifestation from God giving the monarch that authority. So the monarch would answer to God, you answer to the monarch. And democracy busted that open, which is consistent with real fundamental Christian values, meaning I need not go through the priest or the rabbi. I go straight to Jesus. I don't have to have an intermediary here on earth to go directly to my Creator.
Jesus is an intermediary.
But he's not on earth. So the monarch sits. So democracy busts that system apart and says, wait a minute, no. The individual has self-dominion over themselves, not the government. And that's really the essence of the essence of Roe versus Wade, because Roe versus Wade comes in and says, no, the government can tell you what you can do with your body. And I thought they
100%.
They didn't message that right. And if they message it that way, I think, and like I said, use the analogy of how authority has been ground down to the individual and how easy it is to lose it, because once you now say the government can tell you this, that expands to other dynamics. And particularly when you hand it back to states. So that's an undercurrent there. And look, we're in a crisis, I think, going into this election. What is it going to take to change that from a Democratic perspective?
It's sad, but until people have things taken away from them, they typically don't respond. I mentioned single-issue candidates earlier, right?
Right.
So what are single-issue candidates? People that only care about the one decision that an elected official made that maybe they don't agree with. Okay, and that's why they choose to come out and vote against them or maybe vote for them. Well, I'm going to tell you, you've got some people running on one or two issues you have people running for judge that, because judges are supposed to be nonpartisan, you don't really get to know what their positions are on anything.
Right.
But truthfully, some of the people that are running, man, if they were to get elected and some of these cases gets in front of them as far as our civil rights, we could see a significant rolling back of those rights. And unfortunately, it's only then when something happens. You will appreciate this, both of you, Daryl and Clint, because you have daughters. When the ruling came down last month, my 13-year-old was very upset. And I had a conversation with her one-on-one. I was like, Mom, she started telling me it's not right for the government to do this, do that. And I said, well, listen, here's how I want you to approach this. You can't be one of those people that get mad in the moment, go protest at a rally, and then forget about the issue.
Right.
You have a greater responsibility. That means you need to educate yourself on the issues, educate other people on the issues, and ensure that your circle of adults around you can vote on your behalf, because that issue is that important to you. I said, because otherwise you're going to make a bunch of noise in the moment and people are going to forget. And that's the society we're in today. People are going to forget by November about Roe v. Wade.
I hope not. I would love to do a survey of how many people who talked to their sons following George Floyd and Trayvon Martin talk to their daughters after the vote regarding Roe versus Wade. Did we take the same kind of urgency about this threat to their lives that we took to when that threat came about or remanifest itself? Because I had a conversation with my daughter, I was surprised. She launched into a whole diatribe about it, and it was really the essence of how do they tell me what to do with my body? How do they tell me what to do with my body? I was surprised. I did not see that coming from such a young person, and I'm really impressed that your daughter has enough self-awareness and about what's happening in the world. But then again, I've had her co-host my show with me, and so I know you've got yourself, a really sharp young lady. Both of your daughters are great young ladies that you and your wife are developing their heads. You're doing a wonderful job with that. So listen, I want to thank you so much for calling in. Listen, DJ CEO is itching to get in the conversation, so I'm going to be polite. He wants to talk a little bit. Go ahead, DJ CEO.
And I just got one question for you about Merrick Garland. Do you believe that he is afraid to go up against the Supreme Court and lose?
No. Whenever you look at the Justice Department, they always take their time. We have a high-profile ex-elected official that just was indicted a couple months ago, and this case has been developing since 2015 against that individual.
Yes.
Right? The Justice Department takes its time. And why? Because when they got you, all of their ducks are in a row, and you pretty much have going to try this case and lose, because they don't lose, or you're going to plea out, okay? Meaning and go to jail for a period of time or pay a fine or whatever that may end up resulting in. In this particular case, a former president of the United States, unprecedented. And that ex-president is still very popular. So you bring them, they have to be on point, and they almost have to be locked down perfect, because you're going to have a segment of our population that will never believe anything that the indictment papers will say. So he doesn't want to be used to playing politics here. It's obvious that he's familiar with the Democrats, being a former nominee for the Supreme Court from a Democratic president. And I don't think he can afford to rip the country apart by coming halfway. He's got to come all the way with it. So I don't think he's scared. I think he's making sure his ducks are in a row. The January 6th commission, thank God they've been public. If anybody's watched any of that and thinks that the former president was doing his job, they need glasses. This was ordered days and cases and this month before. And I do think he's liable, but proving that in court is a whole nother story. And that's why he's taking his time.
Outstanding. Great answer there, Ed. As always, we appreciate your contribution to the show and supporting us and giving us your time this morning. I want to thank you very much, and you enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Yes, sir.
All right, everybody. That was former State Representative Ed Lorraine, attorney at large here in Tampa, and just a great community activist. It really reflects, what you can contribute to a community when you're in office and not in office, and just some great insight he shared with us. Look, it looks like we're almost up on my last break of the day. Let's take this break. And if you're out there and you're listening, you want to call in. I had a couple people said, look, I had something on my mind. Hey, give it a shot. 813-444-9588. 813-444-9588. Give us a call. In Touch News Radio, reality radio where everybody can be a star. We will be right back after this message.
Get ready for over 5 decades of music. It's the last stop on the Love Train Tour, starring the OJs. It's your last chance to see your favorite group. The OJs live in concert. With Gerald Austin and the Manhattans. Friday, August 26th in the Strand Center. Also featuring Shirley Murdoch. The OJs with hit after hit. With Gerald Austin Boston and the Manhattans, and Shirley Murdoch.
Say goodbye.
Friday, August 26th in the Strand Center. It's the Farewell Tour for the OJs. For tickets, go online to strandcenter.org. Put your hands together for the OJs, Gerald Wilson, the Manhattans, and Shirley Murdoch.
You've been injured, you deserve help from an attorney that knows how to handle your injury claim. This is Attorney Clinton Parrish from the Law Office of Clinton Parrish.